All right, here's today's lesson. We've been taking a bunch of tests in ECA remediation. And one of the tests that we took was for an essay called Coming to Our Senses, which was about how our universe, we really don't know much about it, and what we have learned has been based upon uses of machines, stereoscopes, telescopes, and other things in front of us. So the essay Coming to Our Senses, we had a 5-question test on it. And here are some of the questions, and we're going to go through the answers. Number 1, which detail supports the author's point that our senses lack precision? So what we have in the actual question is there's an argument. What we need to find out of those answers is which one of those is evidence used to support that argument. So which detail supports the author's point that our senses lack precision? So A, some people boast of having a sixth sense. That wasn't anywhere near that statement, so we can eliminate it as a correct answer. B, among our 5 senses, sight is the most special to us. Even though that he says that in the essay, that is not used to support that particular premise. C, our eyes have no trouble spotting a lone match across the darkened auditorium. Once again, that's not the answer, even though it's a fact from the thing. The correct answer was D. If you increase a sound's volume by a factor of 2, you barely notice it. That's the only fact from the article that shows that our senses lack true precision. And this also comes, you got to understand something about sound and things like that and waves. I'm about to remove people from this and say good luck on the ECA. So when you talk about sound, the way they measure sound is in decibels, which is actually not magnitudes of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but actually exponentially from 0 to 1 to 10s to 100s to 1000s to 10,000s. So sound is not measured by factors of 2, and we wouldn't barely notice, but by like exponential values, which he points out in the essay. But basically our senses wouldn't notice if we increase by a factor of 2 something sound. Number 2 then, the author believes that parapsychology is nonsense because, well, this is something that is an argument that he makes in the text. One of these is actual evidence used to support that, once again. So the author believes that parapsychology is nonsense. People are fascinated by mind readers. Even though he says this in the text, that isn't the evidence used to support that. B, scientists do not claim to have special powers. That is plausible. You will keep it for now. Because it's true, and he does point it out during that paragraph, but it might not be the best answer. C, some people profess to see or know things that others cannot. Well, once again, that's a fact in the story, but this one does not prove that it's nonsense. It's not related to that nonsense part of the question. Experiments show that the claims of parapsychology cannot be supported. And he actually kind of points out that there's no way that parapsychology is supported because he goes, there's no books about how to win the lottery every single time. So this is the better answer to his question, even though that one's plausible, it's not the best answer. Which then leads us to question 3. The author includes the example of a blob placed in front of us in order to. Okay, this is an author's purpose question. In other words, the answer isn't exactly in the text. What you have to do is you have to go back to that part of the text. You have to figure out where he said that. And the question is why did he say that? What effect on his reader would he possibly have? So without tools, the blob remains a mystery. I'm going to keep that because that's plausible. I believe that. In fact, one of the things, if you look at question 1 and question 3, question 1 says that lacks precision, so we don't know specifically things. And in this case, if we were just looking at the blob and we didn't have ways to measure it, we wouldn't know what it was. So let's hold on to A for a second. B, we humans have a tendency to try to taste things. That answer doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't address the author's purpose. It doesn't answer that question at all. C, our sense of sight helps us to determine the structure of the blob. While that's plausible, it doesn't exactly show why the author put it there. It's not an author's purpose answer. D, The universe is full of many strange and unexplainable things. While that is the truth based upon not just the article and what we see, does that necessarily line up with the author's purpose? And that absolutely is not the author's purpose for that part. So the author is trying to explain to us that without the use of tools, the blob simply is a mystery to us. Same thing with like the examples the author gave of looking into space. We really can't see all of those stars. We rely on equipment to help us see those stars firsthand. So it brings us to the last couple of questions. Number 4, what does the author mean when he says that if we were born with, quote, high precision tunable eyeballs, the world would appear richer to us? So the key words in the question is, this is what the author said in his argument. Which one of these then is going to be the evidence to support it? Well, to the human eye, the world lacks color and variety. You can eliminate that because the key word's the world lacks color. We can see color with the human eye, so you can get rid of that. That's a false statement. B, special eyeballs would allow us to see things that we cannot see with normal eyes. That's believable, and I'm going to keep it in place because it's believable and plausible. C, charts and diagrams do not provide enough information for scientists. That answer doesn't make any sense. It's not even related to the actual question, so we can eliminate C. So we've gotten rid of A and C. We keep B as plausible. D, we hone our sense of sight from the moment of birth until we become adults. While that is in the article, does that necessarily support that premise? And the correct answer is no, it does not. And therefore, B is the best answer for that question. Which then leaves us to the final question. Why don't relativity and particle physics make sense to the average person? Now the answer for this is directly in the text. He actually explains for a paragraph why it is we're so good at things that we see and do on a regular basis firsthand, and why we're not good at things that we don't do on a daily basis. If you don't take tests on a daily basis, you're going to suck at taking tests. If you don't measure things on a daily basis, you're not going to be good at measuring certain things. Any of you that work as a cook, you know that if you don't cook on a regular basis, you lose your skills in cooking. So why don't relativity and particle physics make sense to the average person? And it's not because they don't have honed senses. The average person does not believe in sense. That answer doesn't make any sense. It's an absurd answer. It doesn't even answer the question. C, the average person has not explored these ideas with technology. D, the average person lacks the discipline to understand. Let's get rid of discipline. The average person does not have honed senses. That's not the answer to the question. The correct answer for us is C, the average person has not explored these ideas with technology. In other words, they haven't experienced it. So he spends an entire paragraph in the article explaining why people don't understand relativity and particle physics. And it's because they just don't deal with it on a daily basis and they don't work firsthand with it. So those are the correct answers for the test for coming to our senses.
Maurice Causey.